Modular power supply. A modular power supply is a specialized type of power supply unit where the cables are not permanently attached to the metal housing. In a traditional or non-modular power supply, every single cable for the motherboard, graphics card, and hard drives comes out of one hole in the back of the unit. Even if you do not need them, a modular power supply changes this by providing a series of sockets on the back of the unit, allowing a technician to plug in only the specific cables required for that specific build. The three main design categories. When you are choosing a power supply, you will encounter three distinct physical layouts, and understanding the difference between them is vital for managing a clean and efficient computer build. 1. Non-modular power supplies. These are the most common and budget-friendly units. All of the cables are hardwired into the internal circuit board. This means if you have a simple computer that only needs 3 cables, the remaining 10 cables will still be hanging out of the power supply. A technician must bundle these extra cables together with zip ties and hide them in the bottom of the case, which can block airflow and look very messy. 2. Semi-modular power supplies. This design is often considered the middle ground for builders, the most essential cables, specifically the 24-pin motherboard cable and the 8-pin CPU cable, are permanently attached because every computer needs them to turn on. However, the peripheral cables for SSDs and extra graphics cards are modular. This allows for a much cleaner build while keeping the cost lower than a fully modular unit. 3. Fully modular power supplies. In a fully modular unit, every single cable is detachable, even the main motherboard power. This provides the ultimate level of flexibility. It is especially popular for high-end gaming computers and professional workstations, where aesthetics and maximum airflow are a priority. It also makes it much easier to install the power supply into a tight case because you can mount the metal box first and then snap the cables in afterward. The benefits: airflow and customization. The primary reason to use a modular power supply is to improve the internal environment of the computer case. By removing unnecessary cables, you create a clear path for air to flow from the front intake fans to the rear exhaust fans. If a case is stuffed with a rat's nest of unused wires, those wires will trap heat and cause the CPU and graphics card to run at higher temperatures. Beyond cooling, modular units allow for high-end customization. Many professional builders replace the standard black plastic cables with custom, sleeved cables that match the color theme of the computer. Since the cables are detachable, you can simply swap them out without having to open the power supply housing and voiding your warranty. A critical warning: cable compatibility. The most important rule for a technician to remember is that modular cables are not universal. Even if a cable from one power supply physically fits into the socket of another, the internal wiring, or the pinout, might be completely different. If you use a cable from a Corsair power supply on an EVGA power supply, you might send 12 volts into a circuit meant for 5 volts, which will instantly smoke your hard drives or motherboard. Always use the specific cables that came in the box with that specific unit. If you lose a cable, you must contact the manufacturer to get an exact replacement based on the model number of the power supply. Never grab a random modular cable from your spare parts bin without verifying the electrical mapping first. Installation and troubleshooting. When installing a modular power supply, always make sure the cables click firmly into the sockets on the back of the unit. A partially inserted cable can lead to high electrical resistance and melting plastic. If a computer is experiencing random restarts, a technician should check the modular connections at both ends, the power supply end and the component end, to ensure they are fully seated.